Listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and this time we are talking about what is next for the Legend of Zelda series after Tears of the Kingdom. So the reason we're talking about this today is because last week we saw a podcast from Jeff Grubb, Last of the Nintendogs, it's one of the podcasts he does, where he said that something Zelda related that's not having to do with Tears of the Kingdom is happening later this year. Now, Jeff Grubb is a known industry insider. He is a journalist who has covered a lot of topics in the gaming industry over the years and has had a lot of inside knowledge on a number of things outside of Nintendo and Nintendo. He's gotten a number of things right regarding Nintendo. For example, he used to talk about Super Mario 3D All-Stars before it was announced, Pikmin 3 Deluxe before it was announced, 2D Metroid before it was announced, Metroid Prime Remastered before it was announced, and now he's saying Metroid Prime 2 will be supposedly happening relatively soonish, and something Zelda as well. But the something Zelda is a strange thing to happen, because we just got The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the largest Zelda game to date. It came out this May, we're only a couple months removed from its release date, and yet here we are getting rumors that something else Zelda is happening soon. Of course, this something Zelda isn't necessarily for a video game. It can maybe be for a movie announcement, it can maybe be a theme park announcement, a concert announcement. These are possibilities. But given that this information is coming from Jeff Grubb, who is privy to the gaming industry, and that The Legend of Zelda is a gaming series, I would say most likely, if this rumor is to be true, because even if it's coming from a credible source until it's officially announced, because things can change, be moved around, or sometimes there's information that just might not be correct, we gotta take it with a grain of salt. But if this is happening, I think it is probably something game related, which is why we're going to be talking about what that something could be. And even if it's not happening this year, what is next for the Legend of Zelda series? That's what we're talking about today. But before we go forward, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. With your help, it just might be possible. And now here's a quick message from our sponsor. Awesun. What Awesun offers is a remote desktop software. So basically with this software, you can take your phone and you can sign into the app, and then with that same account you sign into the software on your PC, and by doing so you can connect them, and wherever you are, you can access your computer and control it in any way. You can play games, you can edit software, you can upload videos. This is something that I personally use to get my videos done sometimes. When a video is taking a while to upload or what have you, I may have to step out of the house, but as long as I have my phone with me, I can make sure it gets published in time. And there's a few different versions. There's the free version, which will allow you to use the remote desktop. You'll still be able to transfer files, do remote printing, screen mirroring. With the paid pro version, you will have access to remote control on Android devices and remote CMD, and the paid game version allows you to use your phone to play PC games on your phone running on your PC. It even supports up to 144 frames per second, so you can get a lot done with this. And they even sell a smart power plug, so with this you'll be able to turn your computer on and off from wherever you are as long as you have your phone with you. By using this code you see on the screen, when you click the link in the description below, you can get a 7-day free trial, but this code will only work for the first 200 people, so make sure to check it out as soon as you can. So let's first operate under the assumption that something is happening this year. While I'm skeptical, let's just assume it is first, and then we'll talk about the other possibilities. So if something is happening this year, and it's not some sort of movie announcement or something like that, maybe a Lego set or something, which are possibilities, but assuming it's not, what would make sense? Well, I would have thought it would make sense to announce Tears of the Kingdom DLC, but that DLC has not been announced yet. That doesn't mean it's not happening, but usually DLC is announced shortly before a major Nintendo game is coming out or shortly afterwards, and it was not announced beforehand. And the recent Nintendo Direct was shortly after Tears of the Kingdom, and there was nothing there. So I do think this diminishes the chances of there being DLC. However, I've also been thinking that since Tears of the Kingdom is such a large game that took Nintendo 6 years to make, it may be a while before we get the next brand new major Zelda game. So I'm not expecting Nintendo to announce like Tears of the Kingdom 2, for example, or Breath of the Wild 3, or whatever would be next in terms of the mainline open-air Zelda games. So my thought process has been that maybe Nintendo will use DLC for Tears of the Kingdom to help spread things out a little bit, especially with a new system coming out. They usually like to have something major Zelda early on in a system, but because we've just gotten Tears of the Kingdom, that's not possible unless they provide a major DLC. So it may be the case, since it seems like there's a pretty good chance the Switch 2 is coming out sometime next year, although some people argue a little bit later, but hypothetically speaking, let's say I'm right, as indicated by different rumors and different executives in the industry, Nintendo may be saving a major DLC expansion to Tears of the Kingdom next year to help hype up the next system as well. It'll still be available for Switch, but it'll be kind of like a dual release sort of thing to give us something new Zelda to be excited about with new hardware. So if that's the case, if they are pushing the DLC further out, maybe they want something in between to kind of keep us Zelda fans engaged. Or maybe they're just moving on from DLC, or maybe they're just not even doing DLC and they're just jumping straight into development for the next major Zelda game, and they'll do other things instead to keep us engaged. Regardless, I think it makes sense for something to be coming soon that isn't Tears of the Kingdom related to an extent. I do think it's early to announce something to be coming out this year. It seems unlikely that we'll be getting anything major Zelda to come out this year. Nintendo already gave us their Summer Direct where they basically outlined the second half of their year. I do think it is odd that there is no published Nintendo title coming out in August or September. It will be one thing to skip 1 month, but to skip both, that is not something Nintendo does typically, at least during the Switch generation. Of course, if you account for the Jeff Grubb rumor, Metroid Prime 2 may be getting a shadow drop in the September Direct, and then the physical version will come out a few weeks later, still potentially in September. So Metroid Prime 2 might be the Nintendo published title for September, in which case the only vacant month of the year would be August, which really wouldn't be that out of the ordinary, although I'll say that we have seen in prior years, for example last year with Kirby's Dream Buffet, that they could announce an eShop title not too long before it's coming out, and it could release in maybe the month of August. And maybe that could be a Zelda game. Maybe we're about to get some sort of random announcement for an eShop title, and that's what this is. Maybe we're going to get some sort of quick Zelda spin-off. Maybe something like Cadence of Hyrule, for example. Or maybe something entirely new. But just like a small little thing. I would be totally okay with that. What if we get like a Link's crossbow training or something? Or something related to Tingle, or maybe some sort of mini Princess Zelda adventure. Like, all of those things would be nice to see. When you think about how big Zelda has gotten, there should be more spin-offs. It shouldn't just be Legend of Zelda and different ports and remasters and the occasional Warriors game. I think they could go a bit beyond that. Look at the Mario series, for example. The 3D Zelda outsold the 3D Mario. That doesn't happen too often. So I think we're in a world where Nintendo can actually start to produce some Zelda spin-offs. Now, these would be made by separate teams, not the main Zelda team, so this wouldn't take away from the main Zelda game. This would just be some sort of bonus thing, the same way how a Mario Party or a Mario Kart won't take away from the next major 3D Mario. The same would apply here. And while I am entertaining the idea that something Zelda could be happening this year, the only scenario is like a shadow drop like that, like a smaller spin-off title announced randomly, and it comes out in either August or September or something like that, maybe December. But what I think makes more sense is maybe something that gets announced this year that's coming out next year. And if that's what happens, I would say that what Jeff Grubb said wouldn't be inaccurate. He said something Zelda's happening this year. That Zelda happening could be a Zelda announcement. So what could Nintendo conceivably announce this year to come out next year? Well, one thing I could kind of see happening is a Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD combo pack. These games have been rumored for some time, and they are a pair of games that I think if they were to be announced, given the hype behind them, they'd probably sell a few extra million, maybe 4 or 5 million or so, if not a little bit more. And that would be a nice little boost to the overall sales for a particular fiscal year. Given that Nintendo has forecasted 15 million this year in terms of Switches sold, which is lower than prior years, and that they've also indicated that it will be a challenge, they may be looking for ways to bolster sales before the next big system comes out. So announcing these games might be what they do. But I also gotta say, given that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess have already gotten their respective remasters, and these would be essentially ports, maybe with some improvements like maybe 60 frames per second or something like that, I don't feel like they would have a very large announcement to release window. In other words, I'm kind of skeptical of them being announced in a September Direct to come out maybe like in April or May or something like that. Like, that doesn't seem really realistic. Now, maybe they could be coming out in January or February. That's possible. The Zelda anniversary technically is in February, so maybe they could announce them in September and they come out in February. And maybe they are having some additional improvements since they've already been remastered once to make them feel a little bit more worthwhile this time. If they combo them together, 60 frames per second, maybe add some more difficulty options or some other little side quest or something. Maybe the replacement for the Tingle bottle, since we don't have that because Miiverse doesn't exist on the Switch as it did on Wii U. Maybe there are going to be some little things that will embellish this product. They'll make it feel a little bit more worth hyping it up for a few months as opposed to announcing it and releasing it very quickly. Because with a lot of Nintendo's remasters, or rather port-like products, they don't have a very large announcement to release window. But I could kind of see something like this happening. Plus, it would make sense for them to come out before the end of the fiscal year in March, that way they could get that sales boost. And say, for example, the Switch 2 isn't coming out to the end of 2024, maybe it does make sense to have something Zelda in between, like maybe these Zelda remasters in the beginning of the year. That way they could save the DLC for the second half if it's like some sort of expansion adventure. I think this would make some sense. I could kind of see it happening. But let's now entertain another idea. Let's say some of the rumors are true, and Switch 2 is not only coming out in 2024, but it's coming out in early 2024, March 2024, 7 years after the release of the Nintendo Switch in March of 2017. This would be a great way to close out the fiscal year, and it would be possible. I know there have been some outlets saying that Nintendo has confirmed there won't be any Switch 2 for this fiscal year, but that's not actually true. If you check the statements, they've said that their forecast is only including Switch, suggesting that there could be something else added. Not saying they would be adding it, but technically, it's not out of the question is my point here. So if the system's coming out this soon, which again is just a possibility, we'll see, then Nintendo's probably going to have to announce it before the end of this year. Which again, some people may doubt because, well, why would they announce a system during the holidays when they're selling other stuff? I agree, unless this system is meant to be treated more as a premium and they're going to announce a price drop for the current Switch so that way sales are still pretty strong. Again, this is just a possibility, so just bear with me here. If this happens, then Nintendo's going to want to have some sort of announcement of the system this year. And in prior generations, we've usually gotten some sort of tech demo related to Zelda that's used to showcase the abilities of the system. What if they have some sort of announcement event or a big sort of trailer or presentation that announces this and they showcase a tech demo of what this next system could do for the Legend of Zelda series, and maybe that's what this Zelda happening this year outside of Tears of the Kingdom is. Like, that would make sense, it would be pretty cool, but it also wouldn't be an actual game. It would just be a tech demo that doesn't actually take that long to put together. This is something I could see. Now, I'm not sure that Jeff Grubb would be privy to a tech demo being prepared, but maybe. And so maybe that's what's happening. But another possibility is that maybe Nintendo is just not going to do DLC at all for Tears of the Kingdom and is planning more of a substantial release next year for The Legend of Zelda. Whether there's a Switch 2 or not. I think if there is a Switch 2, potentially this could help to showcase the system, if depending on what kind of product this is, but also not necessarily. So some of you may be asking, well, what kind of major Zelda product could we be talking about here, because they just came out with Tears of the Kingdom? Absolutely. I wouldn't expect this to be made by the main Zelda team. I don't expect an announcement for the next major Zelda for a little while. Breath of the Wild came in March of 2017, and its direct sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, wasn't announced until E3 2019. So that was a bit of a window. 2+ years. I'm not expecting the next major successor to Tears of the Kingdom, the next mainline opener Zelda, to be announced until summer of 2025. And even then, that might be a bit early. I think Nintendo may not want to have a similar situation as Tears of the Kingdom did when it used to be called Breath of the Wild 2, because it was announced in 2019 and it didn't come out till 2023. So they may be more cautious about announcing anything Zelda until later. Of course, when you have new hardware, sometimes you want to make announcements for big projects in the future to keep fans excited, so it's still definitely possible they do have an announcement earlier. But point is, I doubt that we're going to get a major Zelda announcement that's like the next big game this year. That's just really unrealistic in my opinion. But what about a top-down or 2D Zelda game? We haven't gotten that in a long time. And that could come out next year, and they could announce it this year. That makes tons of sense. I think that's very conceivable. And if there's not going to be any Tears of the Kingdom DLC, then there's not really any worry about the timing of this top-down Zelda game. That would totally work. And I think that's something that a lot of Zelda fans would appreciate. Maybe not 20 to 30 million Zelda fans, but maybe 5 to 10. Link's Awakening sold about 6, and that was a remake. If they were to make a brand new top-down Zelda game, that would do the trick. Now, if it's another remake, maybe we're talking about slightly smaller numbers. Unless it's something even more ambitious than that. And this would be maybe the scenario where it might be a better showcase of new hardware, because I'm talking about maybe an Ocarina of Time remake. I don't think we should get one next year. Personally, I think that's too soon. But if there isn't any DLC, then Nintendo's going to want to have something to help keep us Zelda fans engaged until the next major game, especially if it's going to take another 4 to 6 years. But I think coming out with a ambitious Zelda remake next year, and when I say remake, I mean like something to make it look like a modern game, just a year after Tears of the Kingdom, that doesn't seem realistic to me. So ultimately, this Zelda thing happening this year is definitely a curveball, if true. But if you account for the possibility of a Zelda spin-off, or a top-down Zelda, or maybe Twilight Princess or Wind Waker HD repackaged or embellished in some way, or the other possibilities I've mentioned, because there are so many different options that they could go with, it wouldn't entirely shock me if they announced something Zelda in a September Direct this year. If it's something really small, like a quick little eShop title, then maybe it could even come out this year, but otherwise it would probably be a next year thing. But what do you guys think is next for Zelda? Do you think it's something that could be announced this year, maybe releasing this year? Or do you think we have to wait a little bit longer? Maybe it's a remake like I suggested, maybe it's top-down Zelda, maybe it's DLC. Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.